Welcome to the Isaiah Show. Today's show is all about books for the book fair. Our first video is all about the top 18 books.
Hey guys, it's Hannah, and today I'm coming to you with a video all about the top 18 books I want to read in 2018. I did a video just like this last year where I talked about the top 17 books I wanted to read in 2017, and essentially this video is kind of like a yearly TBR for me because I don't make monthly TBRs because that's just too restricting for me. I like being able to work towards a reading goal throughout the entire year, and making this type of video definitely helps me with that. So I have rounded up a total of 18 books that I really want to try and get to throughout this year, and today I'm just going to share them with you all. I will just say I'm not going to spend too much time describing the synopsis of each one because there are 18 books that we need to talk about, but without any further ado, let's just get into them. The first book on my list is actually a graphic novel, and that is Persepolis. This is a graphic novel that countless people have been telling me to read ever since I started BookTube. It's basically like a graphic memoir about this woman's life as she lives in Iran through the Iranian Revolution, and that just sounds like something I am definitely going to enjoy. I know it's also a movie, my family's seen the movie, they love the movie, but I haven't read it yet, so I don't want to watch the movie. But like I said, since so many people have recommended this to me, I know that I'm definitely going to enjoy it, so I want to try and pick it up this year. The next book on my list is one that I'm honestly shocked I haven't read yet, and that is the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan, Maureen Johnson, and Robin Mosserman. This is a companion novella bind-up to the Mortal Instrument series, and it basically follows Simon from the Mortal Instrument series, and I can't really say what happens or what's like taking place in here because it takes place right after City of Heavenly Fire, and that'll be a lot of spoilers if you haven't read that series, so I can't really give you a summary. But I've just heard so many great things about this, and a lot of people have said that it's really, really good. Everyone said to read it before Lady Midnight, but I didn't do that. I've already read Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows, but it's fine. I still want to read this one, so I definitely want to try and get to it this year. The next book I really want to get to this year is actually the second book in a series that I've already started, and that is A Torch Against the Night, the second book in the Ember in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. And Ember in the Ashes was one of my favorite books I read in 2017. I absolutely loved it, and I know that I'm also going to enjoy this one, and I really need to continue on with the series, which is why this is one of the books that's on this list. If you don't know, this is like a fantasy series that's kind of inspired by the Roman Empire, so it's kind of a war-torn world, and there's romance and there's politics, and it's just really, really good. I highly recommend giving it a try if you're into political fantasies and if you like romance, because the romance in this one is fantastic. But because I liked that book so much, I definitely want to get to this one this year and make it a priority because I know that I'm also really going to love this one too. The next 3 books on my list are actually all by the same author, and I just really want to read this author, and I want to read all 3 of her books, but that author is Anna Marie McLemore, and the books that I want to read are The Weight of Feathers, When the Moon Was Ours, and Wild Beauty. Anna Marie McLemore's novels are YA, and they're also magical realism, and I've really been wanting to read some more magical realism lately, and I've heard that hers are just exceptional, and so I'm really excited to try them all out. I've actually already started reading The Weight of Feathers, and I'm really, really loving it so far, and I started reading When the Moon Was Ours quite a while ago, and I liked what I had read from it too, so I just know that I'm really going to enjoy her books because I love magical worlds, I love anything with beautiful lyrical writing, and that's what I've heard about all of these, so I definitely think I will love them too. The next book on my list is actually technically 3 books as well, but I'm just counting it as one, and that is the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. This is just a bind-up of all of the books, but I really, really want to get to these books this year because I've been saying that I want to read them for so long, and I still haven't read them, so hopefully this motivates me to read them. All I know about this trilogy is that it's basically a fantasy series, and there are like demons, and there's magic, and it's just said to be extremely good, so I really want to try it out. I have a friend who really, really loves this series, and he always tells me to read it because he likes it so much, and he wants to be able to talk to me about it, and I understand that feeling, so I definitely want to fix that this year and read it so I can finally talk to him as well as everyone else about this series, and hopefully also really love it too. The next book on my list is another magical book, and that is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I don't really know much about the summary of this book at all, and I kind of want to keep it that way because I do want to be surprised by it. All I really know is that it takes place in this little town that's kind of surrounded by a magical dark forest that's eerie and fantastical in some sort of way, and that kind of reminds me of Uprooted by Naomi Novik, and I actually didn't really like that book very much, but I really liked the summary of it, and this one sounds kind of similar to that, so hopefully I'll enjoy this one. This one has also been compared to The Night Circus several times, which is the main reason why I picked it up because I love that book so much, so hopefully this one has a kind of similar atmospheric vibe. But if it does, I definitely know that I'm going to enjoy it, and I want to try and get to it this year because I really want to read some more magical books this year, and hopefully this one lives up to my expectations. The next book on my list is one that I am so excited to read, and it'll probably be the first book that I read on this entire list, because I'm planning on reading it very soon. And that book is Snow Falling by Jane Gloriana Villanueva. If you didn't know, this is the book that Jane writes in Jane the Virgin, the TV show, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I adore that show, and Jane, the main character, is a writer, and she publishes a book in the show called Snow Falling, and they actually published the book, so this is her book. I don't know who the actual authors of the book are because Jane doesn't actually exist, but nonetheless, I am so excited to read this. All I really want to say about what this is about is that it's a romance novel that's set in Miami in the 1900s, and I don't want to say anything else because I feel like it'll spoil things for anyone who hasn't seen the TV show, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone because I want everyone to watch this TV show and experience it for all of its glory. But like I said, since this is one of my favorite shows of all time, I'm so happy that this was published. I'm going to start reading it immediately, and I definitely know that it's going to make me cry a lot. It's already made me cry simply just because of the dedication, and I know that it's going to continue to break my heart, but I'm so ready for it. The next book on my list is a 2017 release that I actually never ended up reading, and that is Witchwood by Tahira Mafi. This book is basically described as a Persian-inspired fantasy, and that just sounds perfect and wonderful to me. I never get to read anything that's Persian-inspired, and I really want to, so this sounds like it's going to be something I really enjoy, hopefully. It's basically about this girl who washes dead bodies, and it's set in some like eerie world, and that just sounds super cool, and I'm so excited to see how this book goes. I wasn't a huge fan of Tahira Mafi's Shatter Me trilogy. I liked her writing, but I just didn't care for the story too much, so I'm excited to give her another try and hopefully really enjoy this one. The next book on my list is one that I started in 2017, but I actually never ended up finishing, and one of my goals for this year is to finish all the books that I've already started, and this is definitely one of those books, and that book is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I read History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera last year, and I really enjoyed that one, so I'm already a fan of his writing, and like I said, I already started reading this one, and I enjoyed what I'd read so far, but I just didn't have the time to finish reading the book. This book is set in this world where on the day that you're going to die, it's called your end day, and you have the option to connect with somebody else on that day, someone else who's also going to die, so that you don't have to be alone, and it follows the story of these two boys who are connected to each other on their end day. So it definitely sounds heartbreaking, but also like something that I think I will really love. But yeah, I definitely want to pick this one back up and finish it this year because from what I'd read, I know that I'm going to enjoy this book, and I know it's going to break my heart, and I can't wait for both of those things. The next book on my list is a classic that I've been wanting to read for several years now, but this year I want to try and make it a priority, and that is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I honestly don't really know anything about the summary of A Tale of Two Cities. I don't really know what it's about at all, and I just want to keep it that way. I want to be surprised by it. The only other Dickens book I've read is Great Expectations, and I wasn't too big of a fan of that one, but I do want to give him another try and read some more of his books, so I think this one will be a good place to start. It's also the only other one I own. And if I'm being quite honest, one of the main reasons I really want to read this book too is because it is referenced so heavily in the Infernal Devices series, because Will and Tessa love this book, and I don't really understand most of the quotes and references that they have from this book in that series, and I want to be able to understand them, so I really want to read the source material so that I can go back and reread those and actually get it. And this may be embarrassing, but the fact that they like this book makes me want to read this book even though they're fictional characters. I don't care, I still want to read it. The next book on my list is another book that is the second book in a series that I've already started, and that is The Angel's Game, the second book in the Shadow of the Wind series by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. Shadow of the Wind was like my second favorite book I read in 2017. It's one of my all-time favorite books. It is so incredibly good, and I didn't know it was a series for the longest time, and then I found out that it was, and I actually owned the second book already, but I didn't realize that it was the second book in this series. But because I enjoyed that book so much, I know that I have to continue on, and I am so excited to dive into this one. Shadow of the Wind, if you didn't know, is a historical fiction novel that takes place over the span of I think like 50 or so years during and after the time of the Spanish Civil War. It's devastating, beautifully written, it has such a rich and layered plot, and it's just one of the most exceptional books I have ever read, so I need to read the second book like right now. I know that this is also going to be an all-time favorite, and this series is going to become an all-time favorite, so I know that this has to be a book that I read in 2018. The next book on my list is actually a nonfiction book, and that is The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. I'm a huge Star Wars fan and a huge Carrie Fisher fan, and I have had this book sitting on my shelf for a little bit now, and I've been wanting to read it for so long, and I do want to read some more nonfiction this year, and I think that this will be a good one to pick up since it's one that I already own. I think reading it will definitely also make me cry because I'll just get emotional thinking about Carrie Fisher while reading this, but I'm still excited to read it, and I definitely think I will enjoy it. The next book on my list is another historical fiction novel, but this time it's YA historical fiction, and that is That Inevitable Victorian Thing by E.K. Johnston. This book follows the story of a descendant of Queen Victoria, and she basically has to get married because it's the custom for her to have an arranged marriage. But before that, she gets a summer to herself where she can travel, and she ends up going to Canada, and she poses there as just like a commoner, and she meets these two people, this boy and this girl, and I'm pretty sure she falls in love with both of them. And from what I can guess, either they're all going to be in a polyamorous relationship, or she's bisexual and it's a love triangle and she has to pick between the two of them. Either way, it sounds fantastic, and I know that I'm going to have a great time reading this. I'm a huge fan of the TV show Victoria on PBS. I've been watching it like obsessively, and it's just so good. It's one of my favorite historical dramas, and so when I heard that this one was also about a descendant of Queen Victoria, I knew that I had to read this. But I haven't heard too much about this book at all, and I feel like YA historical fiction is kind of a rarity, and every time I find it and read it, I have liked it. So I'm really hoping that this will be another one that I also really enjoy. The next book I really want to read in 2018 is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is another historical fiction novel. This time it's adult, and it is set in England and France, I believe. I'm not 100% positive about the time period, but it follows the story of this girl named Rebecca who goes to the south of France, and she ends up meeting this man and falling in love with him, and he proposes to her very quickly, and the two of them get married, and then she moves in with him, and it all happens so fast that she realizes she doesn't actually know very much about him at all. And then after she moves in with him, she realizes that he actually is still in love with his dead wife, and her presence is still kind of around in his life, and that causes a lot of trouble and problems for her. This is another like classic, or maybe modern classic if you want to call it that I've just heard fantastic things about, and so many people talk about this book, and I've been wanting to read it for a while, and ever since I got it and saw how pretty the cover was, it's just been sitting on my shelf and eyeing me and asking me to read it, and I still haven't read it yet. So I want to make 2018 the year that I finally do. The next book on my list is a YA contemporary, and that is 10 Things I Can See From Here by Carrie Mack. Quite honestly, I don't know anything about the actual synopsis of this book. I really don't know what the plot is. I don't know anything about the characters. All I know is that the main character has anxiety, and this book is about a girl who deals with anxiety, and that's why I wanted to read it. As someone who also struggles with anxiety, I really enjoy reading books about characters who also deal with it because it can feel very comforting at times and reassuring. So that's why I really wanted to try this one out, and also because it's gotten some great reviews from people too. So yeah, hopefully I pick this one up soon and also end up enjoying it. And finally, the very last book on my list of books I need to read in 2018 is Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. This is a short story collection of fairy tales and folklore from the Grisha universe. Essentially, Leigh Bardugo wrote a book about the fairy tales that the characters from the Grisha universe would have heard growing up, and I think that's the coolest thing in the world. I love fairy tales and folklore, so getting to read one about a fantasy world just sounds so exciting and good, and I can't wait to read this one. I can't believe I didn't read it in 2017 when it came out, so I know that I have to pick it up this year. So that is it for my list of top 18 books I need to read in 2018. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of the books that I mentioned in this video. Which ones do you think I should get around to first? Also, what are the top 3 books that you really want to read in 2018? If you'd like to follow me on any of my social media, all of my links are in the description box as always. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!
So, my favorite book is called The Crash. And the reason why that's my favorite book because it has interesting plots in the book, and it keeps you entertained, and it keeps you guessing of what's going to happen next. And I love those kind of books that keep you guessing to the end. So you want to keep on reading and reading, and that's what makes a book fun and interesting. So you guys should go out and read the book called The Crash. Go out and read it. Our next video is about the top 10 books to read.
Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Joss and welcome back to my channel, Squibbles Reads. So as you can tell, I've changed settings a little bit again. I wasn't getting very much depth back there because I used to film between the couch and my bookshelf just for my last video, but I wasn't getting that much depth. I was really far forward at the camera. I've also tweaked a couple of settings on my microphone, but we are in a very large room, so if there is an echo, I totally apologize. I'm totally trying to figure all of that out, but I hope it is at least a little bit better for this video. So excuse me while I continue to tinker a little bit with my camera settings. But today I did want to tell you guys my top 10 books that I would like to read in the year 2018, which is just a few days from now, which is really, really freaky because I think I blinked and we were at like January 1st, 2017, and now I'm gonna blink again and we're January 1st, 2018. Like, where has the time gone? But this video is going to be all previously released books that I would like to read in the new year, as opposed to my most anticipated releases for 2018, which is going to be an entirely different video coming soon. So just to kind of differentiate between those two. The books that I'm going to be talking about today are all books that have come out before, just books that I have not gotten to yet. And the first of those books I'm going to show you is A Kind of Freedom by Margaret Wilkerson Sexton. I hope the lighting is okay. This is a library book, so it does have the plastic binding on it, so I hope it's reflecting okay in the lens here. But this is a multi-generational novel that goes through 3 generations in an African-American family. We start in the 50s at the height of World War II in New Orleans, where we have a woman whose name is Evelyn. She's quite well off, so there is a little bit of intersectionality at play there. Then we move down a generation and we are in the year 1982, and we talk about Evelyn's daughter, Jackie. Her plotline revolves around her husband, who is unfortunately struggling with an addiction to drugs. He abandons the family, but then he comes back. And then we move down another generation and we meet Jackie's son, TC. He grows marijuana, but he is not really into using the drug, but he is more obsessed with learning how to cultivate it and to grow it and like the optimal conditions for it. However, he is just being released from jail after a 4-month stint in jail for possession with the intent to distribute. So we go down 3 generations in this family and we meet all of these characters. You guys know I love a good multi-generational novel. I think there may be 1 or 2 more in this video. The next book that I'm going to show you is a book that a lot of people have told me to read, and I just don't know why I haven't gotten to it yet. But this is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This story revolves around the fall of Troy and also the relationship between Achilles and Patroclus. I have heard that this book really highlights the dynamic of their relationship, but also kind of the fallout and the consequences of their relationship. I've also heard that it does not take away from any of the violence and the brutality that was going on in history at this time. And I think in order for us in modern day to really empathize and understanding what is going on with these characters in that situation, it's important to not really skimp on any of those details, however terrifying and uncomfortable they may be for me kind of sitting on my couch reading about this part of history. So I'm most definitely here for all of that. And the third book that I have here is The Good People by Hannah Kent. This is unfortunately a victim of that period of like 4 to 5 months in the first half of the year. I was working full-time hours and going to school full-time. I was taking the tests that I have to take in order to graduate. It was a busy time, and also planning my wedding. So this is a book that was victim to that whole situation and me not reading at all. But I really wanted to get to this one this year, and sadly I did not. This is the sophomore novel of Hannah Kent. If you guys know, Burial Rites, which she also wrote, is one of my favorite books of all time, and I just didn't have the chance to get to this one. This one is kind of similar in tone, but the story and the setting are very different from Burial Rites. So this is a story that is set in Ireland in the year 1825. Our protagonist is a woman named Nora, and her husband Martin has just passed away, and she's left to be the caretaker of her 4-year-old grandson. But her 4-year-old grandson he does not speak, he does not talk, and instead at night he just screams all night and he doesn't sleep, and she's just having a really hard time. So she believes, or has convinced herself, or has some type of superstition that he has been actually kidnapped by fairies or changed into fairies and replaced by a being called a changeling. So there is involvement of some fairies, maybe a little bit of like supernatural elements, and also a lot of like myths and traditions and everything that was going on in Ireland during this time in the 1800s. My fourth book is Kintu by Jennifer Nansubuga Mukumbi. This is a book that I hauled in my late latest December book haul. If you guys are interested in that, I will definitely leave it in the card up there and also in the down bar below. But this is a book that is set in Uganda. I have never read a book that has been set in Uganda, and it starts in the year 1750, and we have a being named Kintu, and he casts a curse on this family for many generations to come. This is, again, a multi-generational novel, which you know I love, and it follows all the generations and how the curse affects them. I did scroll through some reviews, and I've read that it covers topics like AIDS, crime, mental health, differences in things like income, religion, childbearing beliefs, and of course traditions and stories and mythology that are passed down from generation to generation. All things within a massive scope, which I absolutely love in a novel that follows many generations in the same family. Next, I have The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and also there is a sequel that just got released in, I think, early to mid-December called The Girl in the Tower. I sadly have not read either. This is set in the wilderness, so definitely some of that chilly, haunting, wintry type setting. We have our main character, Vasya, who loves to play and just be out and about in the wilderness. She has, of course, as a lot of fairy tales go, a stepmother that is involved in some kind of dark and mysterious plotline that involves magic and the forest and the wilderness. There is something weird going on in the forest, and I think the people in the town that she lives in may perhaps be in danger. There are spirits and magical dark beings, all things that I really, really love, set in kind of a wintry setting again. This sounds really wonderful and perfect to read while it is still cold outside. I mean, it's really not that cold outside. I'm wearing a sweater, but it has cold shoulders, so I mean, I can pretend, right? And my next book that I have here is The Cutting Season by Attica Locke. I have been also wanting to read Attica Locke. I think her works are some that I will definitely dive into a little bit more in 2018, but she's an African-American writer of mysteries, but she also writes scripts and screenplays for big production companies, and one of the coolest things that I think she's done is that she's a writer and producer for the TV show Empire, but that was a total tangent. This is her book, The Cutting Season. A lot of her mysteries focus on the American South, and this one in particular is set in Louisiana on a plantation called Bellevue, and there is a woman named Karen, and she has been kind of the caretaker of the plantation for the past 4 years, and when she is walking, there is a body of a girl that she stumbles upon, and when she kind of does her own little investigation into it, she finds that there are a lot of secrets and family things that are going on in the plantation that she starts to unearth. It starts getting really creepy. I love mysteries. I love thrillers, especially in the winter. Like I said in a previous video, I love them all year, but they just get darker and creepier and awesomer to read because they're really compelling and moving in the winter. I don't know why I'm telling you why I like thrillers, but I do like them a lot, and this one is one that I've been wanting to get to for a while. Next book that I'm going to tell you about is so hard for me to explain, and I think I just need to frickin' read it, but this is The Impossible Fairy Tale by Han Yu-ju, and translated from Korean by Janet Hong. This is a book that revolves around elementary school age children. There are a couple of what is described as unremarkable children, and it kind of follows their story in school, but their class and the children in their class have been consumed by a murderous rage, and one of the children starts to write really threatening and really terrifying and offbeat things in a notebook that allude to the death of other children and people in the school, which is really creepy and kind of reminds me of the anime Death Note, but I digress. This was in my most anticipated releases of 2017. It is the end of 2017, and here I am wanting to read it in 2018. Go me. And book number 8 is Kushiel's Dart by Jacqueline Carey. I believe this is the first book in a fantasy trilogy. It has all the makings of a great fantasy novel. It has political intrigue set in a fantastical world, but what really interests me in this one is that I believe the story and the society in this book is very open-minded towards things like polyamory, characters' different sexualities, and the way that they approach sexual and romantic relationships. I think this whole society is just very open-minded, and so we see characters that have different types of relationship kind of in this vein in this world, which I think is really cool. Book number 9 is the book that I think I am the most sad about that I haven't read yet, and I don't know why, but this book is The Story Hour by Thriti Umrigar. Thriti Umrigar has a lot of own voices books, a really large repertoire actually, of books that feature Indian and Indian American protagonists, and I really look forward to discovering more of her books in 2018. But this particular one is about a psychotherapist whose name is Maggie, and one day a client walks in. She's an Indian woman whose name is Lakshmi, who has just survived a suicide attempt. There are a lot of things in her life that really aren't serving her. her husband is incredibly controlling and domineering, and also she has been cut off from her parents and her whole life and her friends in India. And Maggie finds that as their therapeutic relationship goes on, it becomes less of a therapeutic relationship and more of a friendship, which is kind of a little bit of a weird ethical boundary for Maggie. So she is grappling with that, and we also hear a lot of Lakshmi's story as well. I am so looking forward to getting into this one very soon. And the final book, book number 10 that I have to show you guys, is No One Is Coming to Save Us by Stephanie Powell Watts. This is a modern retelling, or it's actually not a retelling, it's inspired by The Great Gatsby, except it is set in modern day in North Carolina and features all African American characters. So I am super looking forward to this one. I was actually researching on the internet an interview by Stephanie Powell Watts that NPR was doing, and she said that she wanted to twist the story a little bit and really focus and give voice to the female characters in the book, because in The Great Gatsby it can be argued that the females were really used as symbols and objects to kind of drive the plot and the men's motives forward a little bit more. So she wanted to give a voice and some more agency to the women in this book. And I was also reading that some of the similarities to The Great Gatsby are that there is a character who is coming home from a long time away, and this character has formed an idealized world and an idealized picture of what home will be like, including how different people will treat the character and how they will treat certain people, and this idealized setting that they've been concocting in their mind for a long time, and kind of seeing how that plays out. So those are the top 10 books that I plan on reading in 2018, hopefully in like the first couple months of 2018, because I've been wanting to get to these ones for a while. Please leave down in the comments what book that has been published already that you want to read in 2018. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.
Before we go today, I would like to thank all my viewers for supporting this show for the last 7 years. Please go out, tell your families, your friends, whoever, your daughters, your sisters, your brothers, whoever. Tell them, watch this show called The Isaiah Show. Watch this show, support it. Whatever you guys can do, support this show, like it, subscribe to it, write comments below the videos, tell me what you want to see on the show more, topics you want to see. I just want to say just thank you very much, and I want to say see you next time on the Isaiah Show. Be kind to one another. Take care, you guys. Love you so much. Bye.